Hi and welcome to Jessie James Beads. My name is Jem and today we're talking memory wire. Let's talk about memory wire. What is memory wire? It's a steel wire. It comes in a number of diameters and finishes. This is a gold colour. This is a necklace style wire. It's made from hardened steel. You can have it in a whole different variety of sizes. This is a ring size and it will stretch out. And what we're going to work with today is a bracelet size memory wire. So this in and of itself will come in a bunch of different sizes, a bunch of different distances across that central region. And we use it for making memory wire bracelets. A hardened steel wire, it's designed to retain its shape. Now, if you've worked with copper wire, you'll know that unspooling it will change the shape of it. It also comes in different strengths of springiness. So I'm going to take a medium-sized, medium springy coil of bracelet size memory wire, and this is what we're going to make. A 1.5 turn memory wire bangle, or bracelet rather. Really easy for people to wear. Perfectly suited to people with limited mobility because there are no clasps. Now, I've personally made these with 5 wraps around the wrist, which is something else to behold. Here's another example in a slightly different colourway. And I've added some beads onto the ends because it just looks really cute. So let's have a look at a selection of beads that I've grabbed from my Jessie James bead stash. Various different sizes. Now, what is suitable for use on a memory wire bangle? Anything that isn't stressed out by this arc. So what you might find is some very, very long faceted beads would be uncomfortable. So this looks pretty, but struggle to put it on the end. That means that the distance between the entry at one side, the entry at the other side, is just a little bit too long. So we probably won't use those. Let's try one of these round ones and see if we can get that to sit comfortably. That, again, just a little bit too long. So what we're looking for, large holes are great on memory wire. Some of those maybe. Smaller distances between the 2 entry points on the bead. So let's slide that one on. That looks great. Now, whilst it might not seem intuitive, teeny tiny beads also work really, really well on memory wire. So what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of turns. It's about 2 full turns and a little bit of change. I tend to work with as much memory wire as I can keep hold of until I've loaded on the beads that I want to work with. So what I'm going to do now is load on a random selection of beads that sit safely. For instance, this one would be too long and there would be too much stress caused by the way that that wire turns inside the bead. So I'm going to add some random beads from my stash and I'll join you back in a second. I've loaded on my random assortment of beads and charms and all kinds of different colourways. I think it's quite attractive to sometimes go for something a little bit more eclectic. So I've left myself about 1.5 inches of wire on one end of that coil to work with whilst we create a small loop at one end. Now, the small loop's purpose is to stop the beads from escaping from the memory wire. It also gives us an opportunity, if we wish to add a charm on. And I've reserved one of these really pretty bead and flower designs from one of our recent bead mixes. So I'll just pop that up in the corner. Now, 2 words of caution working with memory wire. You can utilise your round nose pliers, but I very highly recommend these little fellas. Now, these are marketed as memory wire pliers. You've got 2 different round form sizes. And they're very, very strong. Having that short, stubby action is really useful. Another thing to note is that because memory wire is hardened steel, if you use your traditional flush cutters, you stand the chance of completely ruining your flush cutters. I have a dedicated pair of very stubby little cutters which are designed for hardened wire. And I reserve them for only using on memory wire. So please, please, please don't use your regular flush cutters on this material. What I can do though is decide that this is where I want to finish my design. So I'm going to grab my trusty bent chain nose pliers, leave a little space after that last bead and push very firmly over to one side. That gives me a little right angle on that memory wire. And we're going to create a loop on the end. Now I find it easier to trim the excess away, but you may prefer to create the loop and then trim the excess so that you don't underestimate how much wire you need. What I'm going to do is just grab my very stubby hardened wire cutters and I'm going to leave about probably 1/3 of an inch. Even with these being hardened wire cutters, it's still a little bit tougher. So there's about 1/3 of an inch past the angle that we made. Let's just show you that there. And then I'm going to use the smaller side of my memory wire pliers to create a loop. So if I pop that in like so and support that bead on the end, what I'm going to do is to create a round form on the end. Now ideally, I'd like the very end of that wire to just cross over a little bit. So I've coiled that all the way down and you can see it just crosses over past the point that we created that angle. Now if it doesn't sit quite right for you, you can take a second just to push that down so that it sits perfectly against the angle that you made, like so. What you don't want to do is to be reforming memory wire. Once you've put that angle in, that's where the angle needs to stay. So if we're going to add a charm to one end, what you can do is utilise a jump ring, or you can open up your charm, or you can open up the loop that you've created one time. What I'm going to do is make the work happen on the charm itself. So I'm just going to give that a bit of a squish and a squeeze to harden it up. Open that up a little bit like a jump ring and pop that onto the end of the memory wire as a little bit of a decorative piece on the end of the design. So if I just flip that over and close that up, give it another little squish and a squeeze, and you've got one end of your memory wire bracelet is ready to go. Now, before I came back to you on this video, I did make a little loop on the other end, but the process was exactly the same. So if I chose to, I could add another charm onto this end. I could create a charm using a bead from the mix, potentially one that doesn't go onto the memory wire. So you remember beforehand we were looking at the size of beads that don't fit on memory wire. You've got plenty to choose from that wouldn't be suitable for going on the bangle itself, but would be suitable for becoming a charm on one end. I have to show you very, very quickly a very cool thing that you can do with the ring size memory wire. You can create little half forms like this, so that you create teeny tiny horseshoes. And as you're adding your beads onto the design, you can slide these on either side of the beads, and then you get this lovely, almost lacy frill that appears around the outside of your design. Just another way in which you can use memory wire. I hope that you've enjoyed our memory wire lesson today. Easy to make, easy to wear, easy to share, and also, can you imagine just choosing a specific strand? Love this cloisonné bead, beautiful, and just sliding that onto memory wire. Good to go. Have yourself the most beautiful day. Thank you for watching from all of us here at Jessie James Beads.